Hoarding Bitcoins. Since April 1st, 2012, Bitcoin has risen in value over 200% annually. Over this period, it has been the best investment in the world. If we go back to day one, back in 2009, it's even better. Lately, it seems the price of Bitcoin is being manipulated as the silver and gold prices have been manipulated by the invisible hand of the big banks and the Federal Reserve. The parasites at the Fed know that if the people have a choice, they will certainly take a decentralized cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, with a limited number of them being produced over a period from 2009 to 2140. If the choice is between Bitcoin and the Federal Reserve note, I'd bet on Bitcoin, not the fiat that's being printed at a furious rate, trying to keep a dead empire alive. The US dollar is being produced at a rate of $1 trillion every quarter, according to Jim Willey, a statistician with a doctorate degree. If anyone looks at the growth in value of Bitcoin, they see sporadic rises, a fallback, and then a new plateau is established, never returning to the days when you could buy Bitcoins for a nickel. I often do a search for the latest news on Bitcoin using the Google Advanced Search with one keyword, Bitcoin. And selecting the past 24 hours, I pulled up this list today. Look at the first result of the search. Overstock is now holding Bitcoins rather than sell them quickly. Will other retailers do the same? What will trigger that event, whereby all retailers stop selling their Bitcoins because the price is rising too fast? If they all do this, what is the Bitcoin price going to be? If you were a corporation making 10% annually and Bitcoin comes along with 200% annually, what would you do? If they follow suit as Overstock did, aren't they really betting that Bitcoin will give them a much higher return than the merchandise they sell? What would an apartment building owner do if his Beverly Hills apartment building returns 5% net income and he hears about Bitcoin at 200% annual return since 2012? Would he release the loser and get on the winning track? If you have the rights to songs by the Beatles and you get an income of 35% annually on your investment, do you hold on to this asset or buy Bitcoin and let someone else get 35% on the Beatles songs? What happens to the values of income streams if Bitcoin can get investors 200% annually? Will they plummet? Who owns all the big corporations and best real estate? Isn't it this group of elite connected to the Fed? They printed money and stole everything on the fucking planet. Bitcoin could turn their companies into shit, couldn't it? With a return of 200% annually, what would anyone do regarding Bitcoin? They would get on the fast track, and what happens to all fiat currencies around the world when they do? Do the fiat currencies become worthless? Bitcoin is already worth more than all the fiats combined, if you buy one of each and add them up. In US dollars, the total is just $24.51. Bitcoin today was $241 and change. That's nearly 10 times the value of all world currencies added together. Bitcoin is the most valuable currency in the world already. You don't have to wait, but you will not see such a statement on the Google search. Why? Because if people can get 200% on Bitcoin annually, Google stock is worth shit. No business can compete with Bitcoin. None. If you have $250,000 and we're planning to open a restaurant, the equipment will cost you $150,000 and the return will only be about 10% on gross sales. Do you want to make $25,000 annually from your $250,000? Or do you look at Bitcoin's record since April 1st, 2012 and see 200% annually? What's 200% of $250,000? Is it $500,000? That's the income annually if Bitcoin continues to rise in value at the rate of 200% annually, which I don't think it can, unless 1% of the money in banks moves out of banks and into Bitcoin. Unless Overstock's move today to hoard Bitcoins is repeated by all businesses which accept Bitcoin and sell them at once for US dollars. How long will it be before people don't want the US dollar as the result of the counterfeiting? I will say this, all businesses have a capital problem because Bitcoin is here. They all have to decide if 200% is attractive. That's not projected growth. That's what Bitcoin did since April 1st, 2012. People in business are smart. They watch trends and they act swiftly to get in on a good thing. And that's how they make money, isn't it? Or am I an orangutan on a skateboard? I smell fear in the air. It smells like diarrhea. Those at the Fed and the big banks are shitting their pants, aren't they? Isn't that why they keep the price of Bitcoin low? When the price of gold was held artificially low, the Chinese and the Russians bought as much of it as they could. Will the same thing happen to Bitcoin? Max Kaiser told the Russians that Bitcoin is equivalent to gold, and he convinced them to legalize it. Do you think the diarrhea is getting better or worse for the big banks and the parasites at the Fed? The headline is designed to make Bitcoin look bad because everyone is scared, even Google. But if you read the fine print, you'll see a change in Overstock's position on Bitcoin. They don't sell them anymore. Why do you suppose they don't want to part with them? Does Bitcoin make more money than the merchandise that Overstock is selling? One could deduce such a strategy if one knows the past record of price increase and does an annualization on it to discover what I said at the beginning. Since April 1st, 2012, Bitcoin has risen in value over 200% annually. Nobody makes 200% annually. Nobody. I want to show you another chart and then I'll let you go. This was put out by the Federal Reserve. It appears that 70% of the people who buy Bitcoins don't sell them. They hoard them. Do you recall what happened in 1933? The Federal Reserve put out a whole lot of gold certificates, and they made a fortune by counterfeiting the paper that was backed by gold they didn't have. What did the people do? When they noticed that there was an awful lot of paper floating around without gold backing, they swapped the paper for gold, and it caused a panic. This private cartel of parasites had no right to counterfeit paper gold. They made a lot of money by doing this, but who took it in the shorts in the end? The U.S. Constitution doesn't allow government to seize private property, but they did. When the Fed sent a direct message over to FDR to call in the people's gold, the threat was prison time if you didn't. Campbell didn't, and he was a high-powered attorney in New York. He understood the U.S. Constitution much better than most, yet he was told to turn in his private property, and he refused. Unfortunately, he had it in a safety deposit box at Chase, and they confiscated it. He was legally right, but they threatened him with jail time, and so he capitulated. You have to back down from government because they have the power, and you have shit. You can be New York's most powerful attorney, and you have shit when the government decides to take your gold. Private property or not, when government orders you to turn in your gold, you will do it. They will print some paper and hand it to you, but that paper isn't really money, and it's backed by nothing. People don't want counterfeit money. They want gold because they consider it real money. Government is way out of line. Their excuse was the people were hoarding gold. They did not tell the people about the counterfeiting at the Federal Reserve. Lincoln confiscated the gold and FDR confiscated the gold. If government has already done it twice, would they do it again? I would bet my life that the Federal Reserve, which is the real government, not those clowns, bozos, and jugglers that you think you elected, they have no power. The power comes from the money that bribes bozos in Congress. The Federal Reserve has a checkbook that never bounces a check. They just create money on a ledger and start the spending spree. If a U.S. Senator wants $100 million to vote yes on the Patriot Act, the Federal Reserve creates a Swiss bank account for him, creates $100 million, and his vote is bought. Andrew Basiago said there are over 300 members of Congress with Swiss bank accounts. Is this bribe money? How would Andrew Basiago know? because he was part of the Pegasus project, trips into the future and past. Tesla time travel for the benefit of the CIA and the elite at the expense of we the people. They get all the benefits, we get all the costs. That's government, and it's wrong. We need to end government and govern ourselves. We'd be much better off without the burden, without being denied the benefits and having government use the discoveries against us, wouldn't we? Basiago said he saw the Supreme Court building under 100 feet of water, but something is wrong with the date. It was 2013. What's today? June 25th, 2015. They're late. I hope the floodwaters come in fast enough to drown the justices on the Supreme Court, because we don't need them anymore. They work for the fascists, the Nazis, and the dictatorship. I was thrilled when I heard this, but when I read recently the Fed moved their office from New York to Chicago, I was equally disappointed by this news. I was hoping to drown all the rats in one swift flood. Are the seas going to rise or what? Why would the seas rise? Is there going to be some massive melting or something? What would cause the polar ice cap at the South Pole to melt? Planet what? X? Okay, whatever. Andrew Basiago was wrong about the Supreme Court building, or he had the date wrong. Which is it? Is he right about members of Congress having Swiss bank accounts? And is this bribery money? How about some polygraph tests? That's what they would do to us. The whole government is as corrupt as it can be, and we need to send a strong message to them to straighten things out. Let's tell them we've been thinking about secession and how much relief we could get from firing all those in the federal government, ending all wars, abolishing the IRS, which is more like a mafia than any governmental agency, and get rid of the Federal Reserve and put an end to their bribery checkbook. Secession ends all the government agencies which serve the dictatorship rather than the people, so why should we, the people, keep paying them? Let the dictators pay them. We don't get any benefit from governmental agencies. The Center for Disease Control has a patent on the Ebola virus. They're planning to make a killing on the Ebola virus. The EPA is looking into the maximum amount of fluoride they can put into our drinking water, not the minimum as you would expect if they worked for us, instead of the corporations that are dumping toxic industrial waste into your drinking water. Fluoride is rat poison, isn't it? How much rat poison do you want in your coffee or the popsicles that you give your kids? I say none. But when did we get a chance to vote on this? Somebody decided that they'd get rid of their industrial waste by dumping them into our drinking water, and I want this to end. If we secede, we can decide for ourselves what industrial waste we want to put into our drinking water in order to help companies be more profitable, can't we? So the Fed is a pain in the ass, and it's time to get rid of them. The sooner the better, and Bitcoin comes along to offer some competition. People swiftly move money into Bitcoin, and now there are billions there. There are only about 14.25 million Bitcoins in existence today, and 70% of them are being hoarded. If people hoard Bitcoins, there will be fewer available to those who want them. If those people demand a higher price to sell, we will see runaway price, which is the opposite of runaway inflation, isn't it? Can't you buy more with your Bitcoins if the price goes up? So why wouldn't anyone hoard them? Look at the screen and read the subtle news. Overstock has decided to hoard Bitcoins. Never mind the headline. It's designed to make you hate Bitcoin. Think of it as a loser. Look at the fine print. Overstock isn't selling their Bitcoins anymore. What did the owner realize? Is he looking at 200% from April 1st, 2012? I think this guy made a very, very smart decision. And I think others will notice what I noticed in this article. Common people aren't going to get on board until the price of Bitcoin is $100,000. If you can only buy one Bitcoin for $241 and change, it might be a good investment, but if you don't know anything about the Bitcoin wallets, you might lose it to a hacker. For $100,000, many hackers would kill their sister. We had a puppet president who killed his sister. Are you aware of this? Which one was it? I know it's a difficult question because so many of them are capable of such a crime. Clinton is not the right answer. He had many people killed, including a 25-year-old girl by the name of Mary Mahoney, who worked at the White House, like Monica Lewinsky. But I'm not aware of any murder of B.J. Bill's sister. 12 bodyguards on the USS Roosevelt? Yes. They all died within a few months of each other. I'll tell you in another video in case you don't know which U.S. puppet president killed his own sister. He was a slime ball, and now he's dead as well. Good riddance to a piece of human garbage. Back to Bitcoin gold and the story you were being told. We don't need to hoard gold anymore. We have a decentralized cryptocurrency with a limited supply, and we have never had this before. We are accustomed to losing purchasing power by saving money because the parasites at the Federal Reserve don't know when to stop stealing by printing money. With Bitcoin, they can't print shit. They don't control Bitcoin. Bitcoin is worldwide and nobody controls it. People like that. It's decentralized and nobody is going to water down your savings. In fact, your purchasing power will increase as more and more people begin to collect a limited supply of Bitcoins, and the more money that goes in, the higher the price. Think of a scale, and the weight is the price. You pile money on top, that's injection of capital into Bitcoin, and what does the scale do? It shows a higher weight or price. Doesn't it? That's all you need to know about limited supply and what it will do to a currency. The price of Bitcoin is the capital divided by the number of Bitcoins in existence. It's a very simple formula. At the start, back in 2009, they pumped a lot of Bitcoins out quickly. The rate drops to half every 4 years. And so the last Bitcoin that will be created is way out there in the year 2140. So whatever supply there is all you're going to see, and hoarding them makes perfect sense. I knew this before I read this article today about Overstock.com. This guy who is the CEO is a very smart guy who knows what the future is. He has decided to hoard Bitcoins, and I'm very, very surprised to read this. The retailers were cashing them in for US dollars as soon as they could. This leader at Overstock is changing his strategy, and I just wanted you to know about it. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back if they don't kill me. Overstock is hoarding Bitcoins. Since April 1st, 2012, Bitcoin has risen in value over 200% annually. Over this period, it has been the best investment in the world. If we go back to day one, back in 2009, it's even better. Lately, it seems the price of Bitcoin is being manipulated as the silver and gold prices have been manipulated by the invisible hand of the big banks and the Federal Reserve. The parasites at the Fed know that if the people have a choice, they will certainly take a decentralized cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, with a limited number of them being produced over a period from 2009 to 2140. If the choice is between Bitcoin and the Federal Reserve note, I'd bet on Bitcoin, not the fiat that's being printed at a furious rate, trying to keep a dead empire alive. The US dollar is being produced at a rate of $1 trillion every quarter, according to Jim Lilly, a statistician with a doctorate degree. If anyone looks at the growth in value of Bitcoin, they see sporadic rises, a fallback, and then a new plateau is established, never returning to the days when you could buy Bitcoins for a nickel. I often do a search for the latest news on Bitcoin using the Google Advanced Search with one keyword, Bitcoin. And selecting the past 24 hours, I pulled up this list today. Look at the first result of the search. Overstock is now holding Bitcoins rather than sell them quickly. Will other retailers do the same? What will trigger that event, whereby all retailers stop selling their Bitcoins because the price is rising too fast? If they all do this, what is the Bitcoin price going to be? If you were a corporation making 10% annually, and Bitcoin comes along with 200% annually, what would you do? If they follow suit as Overstock did, aren't they really betting that Bitcoin will give them a much higher return than the merchandise they sell? What would an apartment building owner do if his Beverly Hills apartment building returns 5% net income and he hears about Bitcoin at 200% annual return since 2012? Would he release the loser and get on the winning track? If you have the rights to songs by